Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser.
Some of these governors are doing so badly. I mean, they got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul Salesman of the Year award.
You can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business.
And when their ideas are bad ones, we call them out. But it's still true that Donald Trump is a convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, has been a congenital liar, and is unfit for the office of President of the United States.
Again, that is Governor J.B. Pritzker several months ago, reiterating lines that he's had time and again, calling Donald Trump an adjudicated rapist, a convicted felon, and a congenial liar, while Donald Trump last night took aim at Pritzker for a few moments in an exclusive interview that Elon Musk had with the former president on X. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thanks for being with us each and every weekday morning. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So the conversation last night with Elon Musk and Donald Trump was rather fascinating. Started late because apparently, according to Musk, there were DDoS attacks, directed denial of service attacks, where it's an attempt to flood servers to try to block up traffic for live streams, for instance, like X. So it started about 40 minutes late, and they had to do a couple of different types of streams to allow more people on. But altogether, I think the total views of the post was like 70 plus million. And total listens, at least when I was listening last night, was over 2+ million live concurrent. So kind of interesting to hear the wide range of conversation they had. They talked about the assassination attempt. They talked about foreign policy. They talked about the economy. They talked about energy and the cost of food and so on. And they also talked about something that was rather fascinating of government efficiency. And Elon was urging former President Trump that if he was to get into office, that he create some kind of government efficiency task force or a panel to look at government efficiencies. And Musk said he'd be willing to do that. Trump also, liked that idea, and we'll hear about this coming up when he discusses getting rid of the Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education. And that would, he says, save taxpayers a whole lot of money by not having a bureaucracy over in Washington, D.C. with a ton of staff and a ton of overhead costs to then take tax dollars from states, go to this bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. to then have that bureaucracy take some off the top and give it back to the states. So Trump has an idea to get rid of the Department of Education, or at least to shrink it down considerably, and keeping that money back in the states. But in that conversation, when they were talking about government efficiency and Trump's idea to get rid of the federal U.S. Department of Education and put money back into the states to deal with education, Trump talked about how some states would do great, while other states would do poorly. Again, here's the extended version here of not the entire 2 hours. We're not going to do that, but about 5 minutes worth of Trump and Musk discussing government efficiencies and how states are being competitive and people are moving from one state to the next because of how things are run. So here is that conversation. And let's line it up and go.
You go into some of these really well-run states. We have states that don't know what debt is. We have states that have low taxes, no debt, everybody working. They're really well-run.
Sure.
And maybe they have certain advantages in terms of location, in terms of, the land or the sun and the water and the whole thing. There are a lot of advantages that some people have. But if you moved education back to the 50, you'll have some that won't do well, but they'll actually be forced to do better because it'll be a pretty bad situation. But if you think about it, you'll have some of these states. I'll bet you'd have 30, 35 states. It'll be much better. And you know what it'll cost? Less than half what it is in Washington. And these people don't care about the students in these, faraway states. And it'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. I think you're making a good point in that if the states have to if each state has to compete against other states, then people will naturally move to states where it's better.
Well, like California, as we said, it's a badly run state. I could go through. I got so many friends that are in those states, even if they're Democrats. I hate to mention certain states, but Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser.
Yeah.
But some of these places are just badly run. But it's almost going to force them to run better, and they won't do it good initially. But you're not going to do worse than you're doing right now. And I would say that the
Yeah.
cost you would cut your cost by 50 or 60%. And you'd have a little
Yeah. Yeah.
monitor. You want to make sure they're teaching English as an example. Give us a
Yeah.
little English, right?
Sure, yeah.
Right?
No, but I mean, to what? Some of these governors are doing so badly. I mean, they got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul Salesman of the Year award because they're driving so much U-Haul
It's
sales.
actually
It's just
amazing.
people moving out.
Isn't it amazing to you as a businessman that they can even survive? Like Illinois, so many people are leaving, and you wonder, how do they survive? I mean, how do they survive? I saw where you left California and you moved to Texas. Texas does a great job. But, I
Yeah,
mean, I just wonder, how do these states survive when big businesses, a big oil company just left California, as you know, and they moved to Texas. How do these big states survive when they lose so many businesses and their taxes are already really high? The taxes are among the highest
yeah.
taxes. You almost wonder, how do they continue on? And in many cases, the governors don't do a good job in their crime-ridden places. You wonder, how do they continue to just go on? It's
Well,
not a good
I think there's.
situation.
I mean, I think the only thing that's going to force some of these states to change is if they risk bankruptcy and they're not getting bailed out by the federal
Right,
government.
right. Well, you're
That's
gonna
that's
you're
the
gonna
only thing
have
that's going to
that.
get them to change.
You remember the
Yeah,
area in California where they had that, where I guess somebody had sticky fingers and they stole a lot of money, and they went into a form of chapter, and it was very
yeah,
nasty for
yeah.
a period of time. But now it's probably the most popular place in all of California. So at some point, something like that may have to happen. But the problem is, you can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business, and then he ends up being governor of Illinois. So what is he going to be? Is he going to be a great governor? And you have people. I could name every one of them. I got to know every one of
Yep.
these, and some are very good, and some are just horrible.
Well, I think the larger point here, too, as you're saying, like a lot of people are concerned about the economy, a lot of people are concerned about inflation, and inflation is effectively a tax on people that save.
So the conversation goes on from there. Elon talking about inflation being a cause of government overspending, and you look at all the COVID dollars that went out, which Trump was partially responsible for. Of course, Biden getting into office in 2021, having a much larger package of taxpayer dollars going out, and then you had the Inflation Reduction Act, which was chock full of all kinds of other new government programs dealing with climate science. So inflation is one of the things that they harped on quite a bit in that conversation last night. But I wanted to get that out because, of course, it's Illinois in focus, and hear what former President Trump had to say about Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. And all of this, of course, comes after Pritzker for months has been critical of Trump. I mean, even all the way back into the COVID era. Pritzker was, while shutting down schools in the states, complaining that Trump wasn't doing enough to help states during the peak of COVID. If you recall, Pritzker was even demanding ventilators en masse and upset that the Trump administration wasn't using the war powers to take over factories to build more ventilators for states like Illinois. And then you have the ongoing COVID situation and the conflicts between the states. Critical of Trump for not doing more, and in particular with the lockdowns. Because it was governors who made those decisions. It wasn't the federal government that said lock down your states. It was states that made those decisions. And I think that's something here in the remaining 80 whatever days of the November election, especially with Tim Walz, former Minnesota governor, he's a current Minnesota governor, but now he's the Democrat's presumptive vice presidential candidate. He had various COVID restrictions similar to what Pritzker had in Illinois. So, you've got these ongoing conflicts. But Pritzker, aside from all the criticism he gave Trump during the Trump administration, and then also even through this election season, he's targeted the Republican candidate as somebody who's stonewalled on bringing about immigration reform. This is from Pritzker, I believe, back in early June at an unrelated event, being asked about then the decision of Biden to secure the border with some kind of executive orders. Of course, 3.5 years into his administration, here's the governor.
Look, President Trump did nearly nothing when he was in office on this subject, and President Biden came into office and actually proposed comprehensive immigration reform. There's only so much that you can do when you've got Republicans in control of or able to block, in control of Congress or able to block legislation in Congress. So remember what I said, which is there was bipartisan agreement on an immigration bill, and that could have gone through had it not been for the interference and negative input of the convicted felon, the adjudicated rapist, who is now going to be the Republican nominee. You know what? The leader of the Republican Party, the convicted felon, Donald Trump, he told all the Republicans to walk away because he wants it as a political issue. So he puts politics over country. And in my view, we now have a proposal from the president.
So, again, that was when Trump was critical of Biden's steps 3.5 years into the Biden administration to have some executive orders, somewhat resembling Trump's executive orders on the border, but regardless, just an example of Pritzker's criticism of Trump and the names he would call Trump. But he also was asked about this after the attempted assassination on Trump. Pritzker said, political violence is bad. He's never called for political violence, but...
And when their ideas are bad ones, we call them out. But it's still true that Donald Trump is a convicted felon, an adjudicated rapist, has been a congenital liar, and is unfit for the office of President of the United States. Having said that, I am very pleased that he remains relatively unharmed, that it was a relatively minor incident for him, and of course saddened and find it extremely tragic that someone with apparently an assault weapon killed people at that rally.
And clearly, there's a lot of dust still falling from the attempted assassination. So that's just some of the back and forth, right? The political rhetoric of sorts with Illinois in focus, especially when you've got millions of people listening to Trump and Musk, and Illinois is in focus of part of that. We've got to share that with you. But again, one last review of some of what Trump had to say last night.
Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser.
Some of these governors are doing so badly. I mean, they got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul Salesman of the Year award.
You can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business.
And when their ideas are bad ones, we call them out.
It's fascinating to watch all of this and to bring it to you with Illinois in Focus Daily. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and join us each and every weekday morning. I'm Greg Bishop. Follow me anywhere. Just search Bishop on Air.